Good evening. It's time to call this budget workshop and public hearing, regular school board meeting of August 20th to order. Madam Secretary, could you call roll?
Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Mrs. Guanajuato-Webb?
Present.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Oberfeld?
Present.
Mrs. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Let the record show that we do have a quorum and that this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, if we could have opening ceremonies, we'll stand for a moment of silence to have personal reflection. We'll follow by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for being in attendance, and I'm glad that some of the principals are here, which means you made it through the first day. Wonderful. I know we started this morning with a fire truck at Calderon early in the morning, but we survived. We have some elected officials here. Commissioner Owens is here. And welcome. Thank you for being in attendance, sir. If it's okay with the board, we're going to have, instead of going right into the budget workshop, we'd like to move 5A, recognition of all American cheerleaders, to the front, and also a report from the San Felipe CISD Education Foundation. Would that be okay in accordance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Then we will have the recognition of all American cheerleaders first, and we have Nick Velasquez. No. Oh, Dr. Perez.
Good evening, President Mesa, board members, and Dr. Rios. This evening, we are honored to recognize Del Rio High School cheerleader members who attended a camp this summer, and it was the National Cheerleaders Association. At the association, the cheerleaders have an opportunity to demonstrate the skills that they have developed so far. And we have with us 4 young ladies who were in attendance and also were selected as as part of the All-American team. And so with us today, we would like to recognize, and as I call their names, they will go ahead and stand up here on stage. We have Victoria Rios, Ariana Aguilar, Annalise Rocha, and Peyton Harris.
First you take a picture, then you shake.
Congratulations. Congratulations to those girls and their sponsor as well, or the coach? Okay, at this time, we have Sylvia Owens, who is the president of the Education Foundation.
Thank you, Sir President, and school board members. Thank you for having us here today. What we're presenting to you today is our annual report. This is something, and I think y'all have heard about our Education Foundation, but just to kind of give you an idea, we were created in 2012, and our sole purpose was to enrich, strengthen, enhance, and support the school district by funding education projects and activities that were not otherwise provided by the public monies, and also that directed our staff and students. Our goals are to recognize educators' initiative and creativity, and to recognize students' achievement and commitment to learning. How do we do this? Our work. Well, we do fundraising, we do innovative teaching grants and student scholarships. I do believe that in your seats you have our actual annual report, but what I'm going to be going over is what you see in the screens is our actual PowerPoint presentation. And please feel free to stop and ask any questions as we go through the report. So our fundraising, how do we do this? Well, we do have quite a bit of community support, charitable contributions and fundraisers. We have our annual Dinner on the Creek. We are very successful with that. We're looking at different avenues of raising additional funds for our cause. And we'll go over that in just a little bit. What have we done about our teaching grant? Something that we're very, very, very proud of. Some of you were at our convocation on Monday and got to see the excitement that you see with our teachers getting their checks and their grants. This is our favorite part of the year when we actually get to give out some checks. First year we actually, and we didn't show that, but the first year we gave 3 grants in the total of $3,000. What you had here earlier today, so y'all kind of came in on a reception of our seat sponsorships. The first donation that we received, and so I do want to recognize them for doing that, was the San Felipe Lions. They actually started with 0 in an account and went to $5,000 because they wrote us a check for $5,000. First year we gave $3,000 worth of grants to teachers, 3 different grants. The next year we moved up to $10,800 because we had actually started our fundraising. 2016, 2017 we gave $21,463. 2017 to 2018, we gave $25,658. And this year, our very exciting total of $41,510.21. So very excited to be able to do that for our teachers. 30 grants. So on your presentation, you see a picture of all the checks that were given out this Monday at the convocation. Just a very brief explanation. Basically, we go and ask our teachers to apply for grants. The grants are received in applications. We have an application committee that's made up of board members together with some administration that kind of helps us and guides us through some of the funding that is provided by the district. We also look at them anonymously, so we don't know who they are, we don't know what school they belong to, we just kind of look at the creativity and the innovation that they put into their applications. So we're very, very, very excited about this amount, and we hope to continue to grow it. This year, we were also able to give, so remember when we first started, we talked about giving innovative teacher grants, but we also talk about recognizing students. So this particular year was our very first year to give scholarships. So we gave 3 scholarships to very special children. In this picture, you'll see Andrea Galaviz, Libby Navarro, and Max Smith were our very first recipients of our $1,000 scholarship. So we were able to give 3 $1,000 scholarships in 2018. So our financial summary, this is something that we do want to share with you to make sure that you know where our funding comes from. Dinner on the Creek, if you take that number, $32,246.78, that is net of fundraising costs. So that is what we net from that Dinner on the Creek. I know I've seen many of you at the Dinner on the Creek. We want to encourage you to continue to come and support the cause, understanding that 100% of the funds that we actually raise comes right back to our teachers and our students. Other contributions, the seat sponsorship. So you came in on the reception that we had holding to recognize some of the people that actually donated some of the money or actually had seats given in their honor. So we encourage y'all to spread that for us as well. We have applications for the seats ranging anywhere from $250 all the way up to $100 up in the balcony. So seats sponsorships, an idea that came to us, and in form of, actually, I think Dr. Rios brought that to us, and it's worked, but we want to continue. Obviously, there's quite a few seats in here that still need plaques on the back of them, so help us support that. Total revenues we did this past year, $52,457.55. And how did we spend that? So last year, we actually granted $25,658.83. We gave $3,000 worth of scholarships. Other expenses, $4,919. One thing that we did this past year was also recognize and appreciate our teachers. We went to each campus and offered them a lunch, and actually also offered them some education on how they can apply for our grants. We want to encourage as many teachers to come out and apply for these grants. We also had 50 applications this year, whereas in the past, I think that's probably close to double what we've had in the past. So it kind of worked. We also did a little bit of appreciation for them. They were very appreciative of a very good barbecue sandwich that we provided for them, and part of that was that cost. We had a few cost carryovers from the prior year, so a total expenditures of $35,606.06. The net change in our assets, so after what we've given out, we increased our assets by $16,851. The total assets for August 20th, 2018 are, as you see here, $61,420 and $20,019.24. Different bank accounts. That is prior to our $41,000 that we gave out. So that does not include, so we'll net that amount out from this total. And we'll continue to grow it for the next year so that we can continue to grow our grant scholarships. We do have some corporate sponsors that we want to recognize. I know I recognize the San Felipe Alliance, but we have the Bank and Trust that is our platinum sponsor every year, Texas Community Bank and Border Federal Credit Union, Linebaugher, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, and Schulman, Lopez, Hofer, and Adlesting, also all corporate sponsors for us. So we do want to recognize them and want to let you know that we do have support from the community for our cause. In your annual report, you have a message. I don't necessarily need to read it to you all, but that is a message that we come up. We do want to appreciate you as a board as well, because we know our teachers and our students and administrators stand out for their commitment to academic excellence, creative innovation, and positive school spirit. So we do want to recognize you and thank you for allowing us to continue to do this. We appreciate the support. We appreciate you coming out and supporting our Dinner on the Creek. We are looking at adding additional fundraising. So we'll let you know a little bit about that as it comes up. We're looking at an adventure race, possibly Adventure on the Creek. We're looking at all different avenues to try to come up with fundraising, because we think there is a real need for our educators to be able to apply for these. So recognizing that our future depends upon the full development and success of our children, the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Education Foundation serves to promote education as the very best investment we can make in our community. Thank you so very much. Any questions?
Questions from board members?
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do.
I will recognize some of our board members that are here. We have Griselda Martinez right over here. We have Sandra Hernandez, that does a tremendous amount of work. I would be totally lost without this lady right here. Dr. Rios, also one of our board members. And Belinda Reyes was here. Do we have any other? Right over here. Past president, also a very hard worker, and has been a member from the very foundation of the organization. Am I missing anybody? So you do have a list of our board members in the flyer, so please take a look and recognize them if you see them, thank them, shake their hand. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Thank you. And I just want to say that over the years, I've noticed how creative the teachers have been in going for these grants. I'm eager to find out what fishing on the creek is, and Fitness for Life, and the greenhouse project, and they're becoming real creative, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Because the ultimate product will be students learning additional information in regard to the project that they're involved in.
So
And
we're
of course,
hoping to one day have a district-wide farmers market, since we did fund quite a few gardens this year. Wouldn't that be wonderful to actually have that and us be able to go and support a farmers market that's put together solely by the district?
and thank
Lots
you.
of things that could happen. We
Thank
did
all-
put together a little presentation, so hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Thanks. And I want to thank all the board members that have been involved with the Education Foundation as well. Thank you very much. We'll continue with our agenda.
The Education Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose sole purpose is to enrich, strengthen, enhance, and support the school district. The Education Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose sole purpose is to enrich, strengthen, enhance, and support the school district.
Apologies, we're going to start over. Okay.
To recognize educators' initiative and creativity. To recognize students' achievement and commitment to learning. And with more than 60 grants awarded in the last 5 years, totaling over $102,000. This is the SFDRCISD Education Foundation. Our children, our community, our future.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time we will open our budget workshop, which is item number 3. First item is item A, 2018-2019 General Fund. Yanakani Valdez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members. You received the interactive budget workbook, which has the latest updates to the workbook and changes and recommendations. You also have a printout at your seats. And let me open it up so that we could have it here in front of us. The interactive workbook that was sent had final areas of discussion, and those areas were in yellow. The areas under salaries and benefits included new positions and removing the salary cap, and the areas under non-salary included construction plan, security, operations, and technology budget. The printout that you have before you is this last tab, which includes the revenues and expenditures. The first page is the revenues, and the second page has all of the proposed expenditures. This is currently showing a balanced budget. However, I'm not sure there's any further discussions or recommendations, or if this were the interpretations that we received. Yes, sir.
Dr. Ruiz.
Ms. Valdez, in discussing with some board members, there's some changes that we're going to make. Can you make them so they can be reflected?
Yes, sir.
But before we go there, can you explain to them the cost on removing the teacher cap and why it falls between both of the recommendations?
Yes, sir. I'm going to start really quickly with the general pay increase. We had 6 general pay increase models. When we received these models, we had to manually calculate the removal of the salary cap. So what I put together was the 1.8% model, which was the lowest general pay increase, and the 2.8% model, which was the highest general pay increase. So depending on what general pay increase was approved, and if the salary cap was recommended to be removed, then that amount would fall in between these two amounts. Or if we had approved 1.8, then it would have been $35,473, as it has stated here. If we had approved 2.8, it would have been $54,776. But we approved a 2% general pay increase, so we have to go back and manually calculate that. So I'm estimating that it's about $40,000. So again, this was based on having all the general pay increase models and having a range.
Yeah, that was the biggest question, the 54 compared to 40,000.
Oh, okay, okay.
Any questions from board members? Mrs. Webb?
Yanakani, we have two budgets on here, one with an M&O of a tax of 1.04, and the other one with an M&O of a tax rate of a 1.1598. And I know you stated last week when we met, we have a balanced budget, but balanced budget being at the 1.04, or are we saying balanced budget estimating that we might get the 1.1598? Which balanced budget are we discussing?
The conversations that we have had on the budget have been based on the 1.1598. The 1.04 model is there to show if the tax ratification election were to not be successful, so that we could understand what the decisions that we're making, what impact it'll have if that tax ratification election is not successful.
Okay, then I guess my concern is if we're basing our balanced budget on something that we don't have yet, do we really have a balanced budget?
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Dr. Rizzo?
Yes, the reason that we do have a balanced budget, or at least that we're presenting it as a balanced budget, is because today you will approve the tax rate. And based on the tax rate that you'll approve today, it matches the balanced budget. Now, obviously, there's uncertainty because it's an election. So therefore, we show the amount under the projected variance should we have to go back to 1.04. And if we do that, well, then there would be a deficit at that point of 3.27. But as I've shared with board members in the past, there is enough money in the excess fund balance where we would still be well within the 4 months operating, 3 months operating fund balance. Therefore, it wouldn't pose a problem for this year and even for next year. But based on the budget, based on a tax rate that you will approve today, it is a balanced budget. Now, come November, if that doesn't happen, well, then we'll come back to the board and make an allocation or recommend an allocation. But I guess just to explain the semantics, based on the tax rate you're approving today, it is a balanced budget.
Now, another question. Today, we're approving not necessarily a tax rate. We're approving that it goes to the community to be placed on a ballot for an election, correct?
Right. The rules state that when you approve a tax rate above what it was previously stated, you must have an election within that.
Correct.
So in reality, you're approving both.
Correct.
And I know, ma'am, that it's semantics, and I clearly understand your point, and I wish that it was different, but having an election in November versus having one in May puts us in this situation. But it really comes down to semantics. I understand what you're saying, that we don't have that money yet, but based on what you're approving today, which is both the tax rate and the order of election, this is the balanced budget.
I just want to add this, and I know that board members will have a question. We'll follow up with questions. I've researched the 20 regions in Texas, and they pose a question whether they've had a bond election in the last 3 years or a TRE. And the majority that have been successful in the bond, of course, they want to get some more money, so they do a bond. But others that have not, they go to a TRE. Now, my question is, originally in the first conversations, I heard a 3.5 for the first year, and possibly 1.6 the following years. How is that? How many years after the 3.5? The 1.6.
Mr. Mesa, based on the property values that we have now, should the legislature not make any changes, should the state legislature not make any changes, that 1.6 is considerably fixed. And I think we worked it out for, I think, 5 years.
The 3.5 was 1 year, and then the other 3 years, to show a total of 4, was the 1.6. So it was about 4
It's
years.
fixed for 3 years.
Well, it's fixed so as long as the state doesn't change
formula.
the funding formula.
Yes.
And it'll be fixed, well, by fixes sounds pretty definite, but it will be very much similar to it, so as long as the state does not change their funding formulas.
Correct.
Which, if they change the funding formula, I'm sure it would be to our benefit,
Yes,
more
sir.
than likely.
Yes,
But-
sir.
We would hope.
Yes, sir, that's
We
what we
hope.
hope.
At this time, board members, questions? Mrs.
If
Webb?
they do change it, we might go the other way. So let's hope it stays positive.
Yes. Ms. Webb, I think you still have a question?
Yes, because what's getting out to our community is that if the TRE is approved, there will be no tax increase for this year. That was what was on the website. So if we're saying there's no tax increase for this year, what are the guarantees for the following years?
The
Dr. Ruiz?
The only guarantee, to be entirely transparent, is that the only guarantee is the guarantee that the board offers. Because at the end, it is the board that makes that determination. And that's why, as we've been talking about educating our constituents about the TRE, it is the board that has that final say. But I trust, as a citizen, that if you were elected and you indicate that there will be no increases, then there will be no increases. But it is the board that makes that determination.
And I guess the last statement, if the TRE passes and we do revert back to the .11598 INS, there needs not be an election at that time because the voters already voted it in, correct?
That is correct, ma'am. You're absolutely correct.
I do want to remind the board members that the language that will appear, it will say that it will increase taxes, but it will not increase taxes for residents. It's just we're combining the M&O with INS. Correct?
Correct. And in the public hearing presentation, we did share some language with Mr. Schulman, and he did reply and approve where we are able to add a statement that states that we will not increase the tax at the end. Even though the first three sentences read completely different, the first part of it reads completely different. The last part says we will not increase the tax rate.
To me, that is the most confusing,
I know.
what appears, in the
Yes.
newspaper and so forth, the wording.
Yes.
Questions? Okay, you wanna-
If I may continue, Ms. Valdez, the new positions and the salary cap should stay as you have them in the handout.
Okay.
On the construction plan, the construction plan should read 1 million.
Yes, sir.
Security, 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then the operations and technology plan will be 1.9 million.
Okay.
And if I can share just the discussions based on the feedback that we have received. Mr. Mesa, to be entirely transparent, the new positions, the coaching and direction that we got from the board, the majority indicated the two new positions that we had talked about, which was the risk management and then the gentleman for the videos and
Multimedia technician.
multimedia tech. The construction plan, there was an agreement to reduce that plan and add it to security, but we had already allocated $500,000 to security. The understanding is that our chief of police and our operations officer will get together and put all the needs together, and then we will have discussions and prioritize how we can invest that $500,000 in security, and then we'll present that to the board, hopefully at the next board meeting. Then the board can direct us on their decisions, because it will be brought to y'all as an agenda item, and it could be some positions, it could be some other structures. And then the operations and technology plan, before the reductions, we reduced this to 1.4, but with the understanding that what was going to take a big hit was the technology piece, not necessarily the operations piece. So after we've made some more reductions and some discussions that we've had, I'm recommending that we bring that to 1.9 so that we're able to fund those computers in our refresh cycle for our students and our teachers. Those are our recommendations. A lot of it is most of it is based on the feedback that we received from individual board members. And now it's for the board to deliberate, Mr. Mesa, and make a final recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, again, Mrs. Webb, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Under the allocation for construction, we have 1,500,000, and for security and safety, I know we had 500, and some of the things that were in discussion was to allocate more into the safety and the security of all campuses so that we can make sure all those campuses were secure, and everything that needed to be done to those existing campuses would be accomplished, and then whatever would be left over would be put back into construction or wherever it needed to be. But instead of going back and forth, I think that our campuses definitely need to have that added safety. But
If I may add, Mrs. Webb, a lot of the operations and technology plan will be affecting campus classrooms. And so that being said, there is a plan to increase a lot of the technology within the classrooms that is going to improve the instruction aspect of the program.
and that's to include the cameras outside the campuses for added safety and security, I'm assuming?
I think that discussion will continue because we decided that we're going to go into that in more detail when we have our discussions. We're simply allocating an amount at this time. But Dr. Ruiz, you might want to add to it.
The only thing I'd like to add, Ms. Valdez, can you take us back to the personnel and show the amount of money that would have been invested in 8 positions for security?
It would have been 399,000.
Okay, so the initial recommendation was 399,000. We've increased that to 500,000, so it's an increase of over $100,000. But because there wasn't consensus on the board, there was consensus that security should be a priority, but there wasn't a consensus as to how we should use it. Should it be for personnel? Should it be for cameras? Should it be for fences? Should it be for software systems? So what we decided was to increase the allotment from the 8 positions, have more discussion on it, and bring some recommendations or items for consideration at the September board meeting. And so really, it is more money that we had initially allocated based on the feedback that y'all gave us. We're just not ready. I think the board isn't ready to say this is what we want and have consensus. And I think that having the allocated money and other 30 days for discussion is a very prudent approach on the board's part to come up with the best way to invest that money.
And I can tell you that my input, I think I might have been the only one to add money to the insurance health, increase the insurance allocation, because as we know, we're having to fund part of the employee to the tune of 1.2, and so that was my recommendation, but I think I might have been the only one to recommend that, so I'm going with the rest of the board and saying that I'd rather do that now in operations and technology.
And Mr. Bessa, at the end of the month, we'll have one more meeting to make final amendments to the budget based on projected carryover. And at that time, administration will be prepared to recommend that most, if not all of the favorability, and we're expecting around 500,000 to be allocated to the insurance at that time. So what your recommendation will eventually happen just another 8 days.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 9 days later?
Monday, the 27th.
Yeah, 8 days later.
Great. Okay, good. That's great to hear because, I mean, I know we're having to, fund part of the employee cost of insurance. And so that's something that's ongoing. And I appreciate the district doing that. Any other, Mr. Overfeld?
Yes, sir. Going back to the 500,000 for security under non-salary, and we talk about cameras and fencing and one entry and all that, and that's all well and good. But that's just going to catch the person on camera. And then that's why I believe that it's important to have those positions. I know that's not the majority of what the board believes, but I wanted to say that. Now, when I'm running this, what was emailed out the other day, I'm getting a variance there that's a lot different than what you're saying here when I move it to 1 point, because mine wasn't sitting at 1.9 million for the operations technology under the M&O 1.1598. There, when I key that in, and it won't let me put the salary cap thing in, the extra 40,000.
Correct.
I'm getting a fiscal year of 2019 projected of, I guess, a 496 plus $1,000 as opposed to the zero that this one's showing. So I don't know what I'm seeing wrong, or
I can come up and look at it if you'd like, but
okay, because it just seems to be keying different than what that one's showing there. And again, can't talk about security out in the open, and that's why I want to wait till closed session and there to look at some things.
As I mentioned, the amount is there, but the discussion will continue for
Okay.
detailed information, because we're looking at keyless entry and other things that we'll discuss, but it's to our benefit to keep those discussions in private.
Yes.
But simply the allocation is the amount that we're looking at for this meeting. But do you understand what Mr. Overfeld is, that there's...
yes, I'd have to come look at his workbook to see.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Any other question?
Okay.
Dr. Rios, any other?
No, sir. This is our recommendations based on our discussions.
Okay.
I will, based on this discussion, or based on this final version, then I will prepare the public hearing documentation and the public hearing presentation on these numbers.
Okay, great. Then we will adjourn the budget workshop if there's no addition. Oh,
I'm sorry. I thought you needed a motion. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Jumping the gun. Sorry.
But I welcome a motion. Okay, we'll adjourn the budget workshop discussion at this point and go into the open meetings, which is, we're going to, first of all, citizens to be heard. Betty, do we have any? Okay, we have none. Then we will go into item 8B, facilities and construction update. Leslie Haenge. I'm going to get it right.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. So for tonight's presentation, I'd like to kind of go in reverse order, and we'll touch on the new construction items towards the end. It seems like that's where we have a lot more questions. So to start out, we'll look at the maintenance department, campus improvements that they've been doing over the last month, the monthly service requests, and then we'll move into technology and all of the work that we've been doing on the new help desk ticket system and where their monthly service requests are. And then we'll follow up at the end there with the new construction projects. Laughlin, the status on the portable buildings being removed, and some of the work that we're doing currently over at Del Rio High School. For campus improvements, we have completed the drain pipe breakage that we had at Buena Vista in the cafeteria. So I kind of gave some different photos there to see what we started with, and then as the piping was replaced, and then concrete was poured, and then the new floor was put in. And we've also put additional traps in there, so in the future, if we have issues with that, we won't have to go to these extremes in order to make the repair. Campus improvements at Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary. This deals with the flooding issue that we have out there, or we had, rather. We've been working directly with the city over the last few months, and over the summertime they were able to bring crews in, get ditches cleaned out, expand some of those, and they ended up putting a system in place to be able to get some of that water washed off. As you can see on the left-hand side here, we have some crews that were out there working from the city, and the one on the right there is the final product that we had, and with all the rain that we received. I'm sorry.
Mr. Henry, I didn't want to miss the opportunity. I know you said a couple of months, but the truth is that we've been talking with the city for years now. And this summer, or not this summer, but this year, the teachers on the Communication Council brought it up, and Mr. Hengate did a great job in working out with the city, or Mr. Hengate's staff. I really don't know who he had doing it. But the city came through and did this work for us. We had a lot of rain this last month, and a lot of us drove by because we were interested in seeing how it was going to work, and it worked, without exaggeration, 100 times better. Our employees had no trouble crossing. That drainage system did. So kudos to the city for coming through. We really appreciate the collaboration.
Great.
Thank you for that historical information. A lot of this obviously has been before I came. My construction manager did a fabulous job working with the city to do this, so it was a great effort. The monthly service requests, you'll notice that for the month of July, our numbers are down, and we'll go into explanation here in another slide or two on why that is. But the tickets that were created for the last month were at 142 and closed out at 79. 63 of those were within 30 days, 72 within 60 days, and 129 within 90-plus days. We do still have, I believe, 3 openings in maintenance, so that contributes to some of those tickets and the delays that we're experiencing on being able to get them corrected. Currently, there are no security-related tickets that were created, open, or closed within the last 30 days within the maintenance department. And then the technology department, the support ticket system went through a lot of changes. Last month we did have board approval to bring a consultant on and go through and basically rework the system, get the performance working better for the upcoming school year. We've had a lot of requests for categorizing tickets and things along those lines. The previous system, we weren't able to do this, but once we went through and did the application upgrades, now we have a lot more capabilities. Some of those capabilities include automation, tickets. When you create one, if there's additional tickets for other people that need those, they automatically get created now and go to the respected person rather than have to manually do each one. Database maintenance, we went through and improved on some performance there, so the system's running faster. And that's being seen by the people creating the tickets or the ones that are updating the tickets and closing them out. So this helps out district-wide. We also have a new licensing structure that we were able to put in place. So with that being said, we're able to reduce the cost on the number of connections with it. So again, we can expand the capabilities of the system. So at this point, we have the technology department, the maintenance department, and soon to have the transportation department where the mechanics work on the buses. They're all going to be using the same ticket system. So I'm looking forward to being able to provide some statistics on that in the upcoming months as well. And then, again, the detailed reports, we'll be able to start categorizing how many are computer-related, printer-related, and this is on the technology side, but again, we'll be able to do this with maintenance to look at how many plumbing tickets we have or electrical. So it's getting more granular with the data that we have, and then we can use that to drive some decisions in the future. And then, of course, we'll also be able to identify how many work orders are pending purchase requests. We take all the requests in, and then we have to put a number to them to see if it's within budget to be able to proceed with that, or if that goes on a long-range plan. The monthly service requests for technology for last month were created at 413, closed 350. Within 30 days, 63. 60-day-old tickets were 5, and then we had 90 at 0 at 90 days. Again, some of these numbers are starting to change now because the system is reporting back more detailed information. So the reports will be changing over the upcoming months, and starting next month when we report on August, we're going to clean this chart out and start fresh for the new school year. And then we can start giving yearly reports on what we were able to accomplish with all the tickets. New construction, Laughlin is moving forward. To my understanding, they had a great day today. We were able to get last-minute things out there. We do have some pending improvements that we'd like to do for that campus this upcoming year, which would include landscaping work. We do have a current quote of $24,000 for that. Playground canopy, which has been quoted at $30,000. A couple water fountains for the playground area, totaling around $8,000, and we're currently receiving pricing on perimeter fence. We're also working with Laughlin at this time at the possibility of doing some type of cooperation on being able to meet some of these needs, so we'll have more information on that also moving forward. Surplus portable buildings, I can say that we had one picked up from Cardwell on Friday, and I believe there was one that was hooked up this morning. I wasn't able to get back out later on this afternoon, but it would have either been picked up today or first thing in the morning. So we've successfully been able to get rid of 2 of them to the city, and we have 1 more left there, and then we're moving on to the ones at the warehouse. So that's been an ongoing effort for quite some time, but we are moving forward with it now. Ram Stadium, our maintenance department started to go through and get the concession stand painted and cleaned, and our asphalt project up there should start taking place tomorrow morning, followed by air conditioning being installed in the concession stand and both the male and female restrooms. And then we'll finish off the project with storage under the bleachers like we had before we started the whole project. This is a current picture of what the concession stand looks like now with the new windows in. It's a very low-cost solution that I think is going to make a big difference. The high school restroom renovations are moving forward right now. Demolition is done, and they're going through starting to install flooring as well as tile on the walls. The picture on the left there shows the new tile, and there are some tiles that are missing. They were waiting on a specific color to come in, which I believe that came in late this morning, so they're kind of filling in the blanks, so they're really trying to move this project along as quickly as they can. And then the photo on the right there shows the new flooring down in the females' restroom. A boiler project that's still on our project list right now. The next step is to do the removal of the old boiler system. That's going to happen tentatively this month, and we're looking at the new boiler units coming in around September-ish. So the units have been placed on order. We're just waiting to receive them and make that whole logistical move to get the old ones out and bring the new ones in. And the energy savings project, we've completed the abatement for the HVAC portion of that project at this time. This was basically, we went through the air handler systems, had to do a full abatement. The board approved it on 7/23. Abatement started on the 27th, and it was completed on the 14th. I believe that was about 6 days ahead of schedule. So at this point, there will be more asbestos removal coming down the road when we get into the demo at the 200 and 400 wing. But as far as the ESCO project, we're in good shape now to start moving forward on the air conditioning components. Any questions?
Questions, board members? Mr. Overfelt?
Just a comment, I got to go out to Laughlin, the STEM this morning, right as class kicked off, and everyone was all kinds of excited to be there from the staff and the teachers to the students, and got to talk to some parents after they dropped their children off, and they were very glad that was there. So it was very cool to see it finally come to fruition there, and hopefully in the future those things that we talked about with the turf and the perimeter fencing, and I know security forces, there was a lot of security forces around enforcing the new school zone around that, so Laughlin's definitely committed to it there, and if y'all get a chance, do go out and see it. It's pretty cool.
Great, great. Mr. Contreras?
I have a question, and I don't know if it's at this point or not, however, I saw where we're contracting somebody like custodial work at the STEM school. Is, just a question, wouldn't it be cheaper to hire a custodian specifically for that school rather than have a contract?
Dr. Luis?
Mr. Hengate did
Okay.
the research on that.
Yes, we looked at what the company was offering out there. They're already on the base. When we're dealing with security clearance, we felt we would run into a lot of staffing issues if someone takes off trying to find replacements. And the company is willing to have a full-time person out there with one to come at lunchtime in addition, and then one to also come when school lets out. So technically, it's almost 3 full positions we're getting for $50,000 a year.
What happens if there's an accident in between? Who's gonna go do a cleanup or something that happens in between school? Because the way I'm hearing it, listening to you, is you're gonna have one at a certain time, and then somebody else comes in the afternoon, or somebody's gonna be there full time. And then another thing is, are they gonna have background checks? Are they gonna be able to give us some type of background check on who these people are every time they change those people? I mean, we don't know who's coming in, who's coming out. We have students there, we have minors. You know, do these people have proper background checks when they bring them to the school?
So it's a requirement of anybody that goes onto the base, and the company agrees to that. So you're correct in that it is a full-time person, and then with added individuals at the peak moments, and everybody that works there has an extensive background check. If we were to try to staff that, to have more people there at peak time, in the long run, it does become more expensive for us. But I can see how it immediately looks, because we think it's just one person.
Any other questions? Okay, the only question I have is in regard to the upgrades that have been done for the campus labs. They're all up and running.
I received communication from technology this morning that technology has made they've made one pass across the district. Everything's been reconnected. There are some areas where teachers or staff have decided to rearrange their rooms, and Dr. Rios and I have worked together on that to approve some overtime for this week, so we can go back through and take care of those situations now. But the entire sweep across the district was completed by Friday last week.
Okay. My main concern is the labs in the campus, elementary especially.
Yes, sir.
I know in the past, the upgrades have been done, and then it took forever to finally get them running, and it caused a delay in the use of the labs.
If I
Yes.
may, Mr. Mesa, the connections are done in the labs. What the last kinks we're working through is just making sure that all the software is appropriate for the labs, and that everybody's able to connect. But we'll do one final pass through on that and make any corrections that are necessary.
Okay, great. I just want it done in a timely fashion where they start using the labs as soon as they can.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Next item we have is on reports, item 8C, accountability report. Ms. Ida Gomez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Can you put it on slideshow? At last month's meeting, we were asked to present on Domain 3 of the new accountability system, which is closing the gap. But before we do, we'd like to go over some ratings. At that time, we didn't have our final ratings. So just a refresher, the new accountability system is made up of 3 domains. You'll see student achievement, you'll see school progress, and closing the gaps. My presentation will be on closing the gaps, but as a refresher, you'll see that under school achievement, we did score 79. There are 3 components under school achievement, and each one is valued at 40% for the first, 40% for the college and career, and 20% for the graduation. The component scores are then scaled into what you see. Under student performance, you'll see a 69, college and career, you'll see an 86, and graduation rate an 85. Based on those percentages, we did score 79, which did equate to a C. Under school progress, we do have a Part A and a Part B. The Part A, again, compares student to student. How did I do as a 3rd grader in reading, and how did I do now as a 4th grade, or from 4th grade to 5th grade? The Part B, however, compares us in the economically disadvantaged population, and it looks at other schools with the same percentages that are very much like us. Those skill scores are then converted, and you'll see there that we scored an 83, which is a B. Closing the gap was a 39%, and I'll show you the breakup in just a moment, and that equated to 73, which was a C. At last month's meeting, we did predict a B rating, and the school district did come in at a B, so we did earn a B rating under the new accountability system. We also received several distinctions. We have 11 schools that participate, and 5 of those schools received a total of 6 distinctions. So you'll see in science, we did have 4 schools who received that honor, and it was Buena Vista Elementary, Lamar Elementary, Ruben Chavita, and Del Rio High School. They all received their science distinction designation. San Felipe Memorial School did receive their distinction in math. You saw some huge gains at the last report. And Lamar Elementary also received a comparative academic growth, which is the Part A of Domain 2. So they received that distinction. I would like to point out that although we do have North Heights Elementary as a required improvement campus, when we actually total their scores from the state, they did meet the 60%. They actually did meet the Met standard. However, on August the 7th, we were informed by the state that if 3 of the 4 components were under a 60, it didn't matter. The highest you could get was a 59. So even though they did average out to a 60 and they would have met the Met standard, because 3 out of the 4, and one of them was a 59, very close, they do fall under the improvement required status. Now we'll go into the closing the gap, which is the Domain 3. A little bit more complicated. You'll see that closing the gap looks at the performance among student groups. It includes various racial and ethnic groups, socioeconomic backgrounds, and other factors. This is actually the indicator the federal and the state put together, and it used to be called the NCLB, the No Child Left Behind, and now it's under the Every Student Succeeds Act. So very much the same type of looking at the different populations. The student groups that are evaluated under this domain include the all students, the 7 racial ethnic groups, the economically disadvantaged student population, any student that is receiving special ed services. It looks at students who previously received special ed services. It looks at our current ELL population, but it also looks at our monitored students. One of the new components is it used to just monitor for 2 years, M1s and M2s, monitor first year, monitor second. They have now gone to 4 years of monitoring, so M3s and M4s. They look at continuously enrolled students and the non-continuously enrolled, which is students who leave the district and then come back. Maybe they drop out, but then they come back. Those are the different components that are rated under Domain 3. The breakup of those components goes into the next section, and it's kind of color-coded so that you can kind of see some of the similarities and some of the differences. There are 6 actual areas that are measured. You look at elementary and middle school, they have a star growth in reading and math, and that's actually 50% of Domain 2, Part A. That's the student growth. Under that same category, you look at academic achievement. Did they meet the grade level in reading and math? And that's Domain 1, and that counts for 30%. Followed by school quality and student success, or the STAR performance, which is Domain 1, which is 10%. In previous years, that was our only category. We just looked at how the students did. That's the way we were calculated. So you can see that now it's a bit more complicated. And then they look at 10% of our bilingual and ESL students. That's for elementary and middle school. Then when you go to the high school and district components, they're the same except for the academic achievement in reading and math is now worth 50% from Domain 1. The student quality, school quality and student success, along with college and career readiness performance. So they're tracking our students to see not only are they ready, but what is it that they're going into. That's worth 30%. That's not anything that's calculated in the elementary, only at the high school level. They still look at 10% of our ESL students and how well they're doing. And then they look at a graduation rate, which is a 4-year federal rate. Now, the graduation rate isn't for this past year or the year before. This is actually from 2014. So it's not how did our students do this past year. It's taking some historical information, and that's the calculation of 10%. All of these indicators is what equaled a 39 under the Domain 3 that I showed you earlier, which was a C. The same 6 components that we discussed, the academic achievement, the student growth, the graduation rate, the English language proficiency, the student success, and the school quality, are all described in this slide. And again, at the bottom of the slide, you'll see to the very far right individual scores, and you'll see an average of a 39, or a total of a 39. And then that equates to a C. You'll also see across the top all the different student groups that are measured in this component. It's probably of the 3, it's the most complicated of all, but it does measure all how we're doing with all our different student populations. Are there any questions on that part of the presentation?
I see none.
The last part of the presentation, we were asked to produce or provide historically the distinctions for the past 5 years, how the campuses have done, and those are the next few slides that you will see. You'll see in 2014-15, at the very top, you have the 2014 accountability system. Buena Vista Elementary, Ruben Chavita, and Del Rio Middle School all received a distinction in ELA reading. In 2015, you'll see Buena Vista received 2 ratings, or 2 distinctions under post-secondary readiness and in science. At Dr. Lonnie Green, they received 1 in ELA reading, and at Del Rio High School, they received 1 in science. In 2016 and 17, in 2016, Buena Vista received 4. Post-readiness, post-secondary readiness, ELA reading, in science, and in closing the gap. Dr. Lonnie Green received ELA reading. Lamar Elementary and Ruben Chavita both received a distinction in science. And San Felipe Memorial received one in math. In 2017, Dr. Lonnie Green received 5 distinctions. We had one in post-secondary readiness, one in ELA reading, one in science, top 25% student progress, and top 25% closing the gap. You'll see that Lamar had one in science. And Delro Freshman, Delro High School combined, we still show it separate, but just for title purposes so we don't forget that freshman is now part of high school. You'll see that they did earn a distinction in 2017 for post-secondary readiness, a distinction in science, and top 25% in student progress. And again, these are the 2018 distinctions. We have 4 of the campuses receiving it in science, one of East Lamar, Ruben Chavita, and Delro High School. We have one in math, San Felipe Memorial, and we do have the comparison academic growth for Lamar Elementary. Are there any questions?
Questions, board members? Mrs. Webb?
Yeah, my concern, first of all, congratulations on the presentation that you presented to us. I congratulated Dr. Rios for the B overall for our district, for receiving a B as a district. However, there are many concerns with individual campuses that have ratings of Ds and ratings of Fs, whether it's on student progress. For example, I'm looking at North Heights right now. I've got Ruben Chavita, Garfield. Lonnie Green had some Ds, some Cs. Lamar. And to me, those individual campuses with those ratings are totally unacceptable. There's something that we have to be doing to improve that. And I'm going to ask Dr. Rios if it would be possible that for our next meeting, maybe one campus at a time can present to the board as to how those particular campuses are going to be addressing the needs of that campus, because every campus is different. The students are different. The demographics are different. The data that we have from the state, that they can easily obtain to determine how many students did not pass certain areas and do that comparison between with our teachers on the campus so that we can know exactly what areas are going to be addressed. Congratulations on the sciences, because I know that at one time there was an area where even Eastside, when it was still there, it was cited for science, because I had to come to the board and present what I was going to do and what difference I was going to make on that campus to bring that campus out of unacceptable. And I know it can be done because we brought it up 4 points, from unacceptable to almost a recognized campus. So I know it can be done.
Yes, ma'am.
But we need to see from the principals and the commitment from maybe their team leaders can come in and do what's going to happen within those campuses. Because I would be very concerned if I had children right now going to the different campuses with these ratings. Our early college, high school, congratulations, because they're the ones that basically brought our district up, and that's great. Again, congratulations on the B rating, but let's see what we can do as a district to bring up our scores in those different areas. And I know we've got great teachers out there. We've got excellent people out there. It's just a matter of what direction we want to go. So if you could work on that, that would be awesome.
Dr. Rios?
We've had the principals working on just making sure they understand the intricacies of the accountability system better than anybody, so that they know how to formulate the plan to bring the general score up, and we're almost there. We can meet your request in a couple of different manners. We can group some of the campuses together and make the presentations on the ones that have similar needs, or we can have a curriculum workshop when it pleases the board, so that we can go more in depth into the plan. Because if we do one campus at a time, well, then the school year is going to be over and we're not going to get through everybody. So we can either group them together and have those presentations with the principals here so they can answer some questions, or we can do a curriculum workshop where we can just focus on that and we can get very deep into the discussion. If y'all will let me know within the next week what the preferences are, then we'll definitely organize it around that area and make the presentation when we're absolutely ready to go. So whatever y'all would like, Mr. Mesa.
Yeah, I think the objective is to focus on the campus individual needs, whereas before we would bring the campus improvement plan before the board. Whatever's beneficial. I think, that when you present the campus improvement plans, yes, you're here all night hearing the different plans, but I think the objective from what I hear from Mrs. Webb is to focus on those deficits and concentrate on that for the current year.
Yes, sir.
But I think we'll have some discussion in regard to what is best to serve the needs.
Yes, sir.
And probably curriculum workshop is, we've had so many meetings lately that I think a workshop would be ideal as long as we can get everyone to have a date in mind. So we'll concentrate on that.
We're going to have a lot of space now that we don't have budget meetings.
As long as we do our budget tonight, I think we'll save some time. But any other comments or questions from board members? Mr. Overfelt?
Yes, sir. I know it was in the paper at least 2 times after the state released its A through F ratings for the district there, and we're excited where we landed there. That I know we were worried it was going to be somewhere else. I know that individuals here on the board are very passionate about the different specific breakdown levels in there when you dig further in there. But I wanted to kind of put it in perspective there that based on TE's website, the Northside ISD, one of the largest ISDs in Texas, got a B. Northeast ISD got a B. San Felipe Del Rio got a B. And I think landing there with 2 of the biggest schools 140-something miles from us is pretty dang good. And based on that one there, good job to Ruma Chavita at 80, which would be a B if the state released a B there. And unless I'm looking at it wrong for the elementaries, Lamar coming in second there. And I know they've clawed their way up from the bottom, and they've done a lot of hard work, and that needs to be acknowledged. I know there's other areas to be worked on and fixed, but congratulations to Ruma Chavita for getting that, and to Lamar especially, and they're to fall at number 2 amongst all the elementaries. There's always work to do, but it shows that we're going in the right direction, and I respect the other opinions up here, but I also wanted to say good job, guys and girls, and there, especially your staff, and there for going in and doing that. And there, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Overfelt.
think, thank you, Mr. Overfelt, and I think Dr. Reyes, you want to interject?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention we know that early college high school did exceptionally well, and then we obviously, a lot of us know why. But I also wanted to point out that Blended Academy got the same score that Del Rio High School did. And 2 years ago, they were low performing. So to have Blended Academy, even though it's a different accountability system, have the same score as Del Rio High School is significant. And that did a lot for our rating. Blended will also have their first graduating class this year. So it's exciting that both early college high school and Blended will have their graduating class this May. And the effort and support that Blended has provided to the district has allowed for other programs in the district to thrive. So Very pleased with all the work. We know that everybody worked really hard. Now, do we have to work a little different? Absolutely. And we look forward to having those conversations and those discussions. But where we are right now, it's all combination of everybody's efforts, the board support in our redesign. And we want the community to have confidence and to know that regardless of different opinions, at the end of the day, when you look at the entire scope, the district is a very hardworking district, hardworking teachers, hardworking administrators, and look forward to the improvement. But it was great news.
And I congratulate the staff again, but I think the objective on my part is to make sure that all the board members understand the rating system. And I do want to say several things that we cannot make an A, even if we had the score, if you have one campus that is improvement required.
Yes.
You cannot get an A. Even if you had a 98, you'll score a B. If you have one campus. So the whole thing is to concentrate to make sure that the campus looks at it in a detailed fashion to find out how they can bring up their score. And the other part is I'd like to continue with an accountability report for the next meeting, and I'd like to have the percentage by campus of the meets grade level and masters
Oh, yes, sir.
by campus.
The approaches, meets, and masters, we will have
Yes.
that for you.
Which-
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We now have item 8, or rather 9, consent agenda. Again, one action will take care of all the items on the consent agenda. Would you please look through the minutes of all the meetings that we've had? They include July 10th, July 16th, July 23rd, July 30th, and August the 6th. And see if there are any corrections to that. Also, if there's any item on the consent agenda that you would like to either ask a question or pull that item out of the consent agenda, you can let me know. And we can act on that independently from the rest. At this time, I'll allow some time for you to look through all the items that we have on the consent agenda. And while you're doing that, if Ms. Gonzalez, could you read the donations for us?
Sure. San Antonio Symphony, $180, Buena Vista Elementary Choir. Johnston's Incorporated, $1,000, Del Rio High School Athletic Department. Cheerleader Booster Club, $3,107 to Del Rio High School cheerleaders. And Cheerleader Booster Club, $1,412 to Del Rio freshman cheerleaders.
Thank you very much. That is a very short list. Great job. Okay, any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda or have questions on? Okay, well, it's all good. Then, there being no questions or no corrections to minutes of the meetings or workshops that we've had, I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We're now down to item on the administration, item 10A. Consideration to approve the first reading of TASB Policy Update 111, affecting policies BBD local, board member training and orientation, CAA local, fiscal management goals and objective, CJA local, contracted services, criminal history, DHE local, employee standards, standards of conduct, searches and alcohol drug testing, DI local, employee welfare, and FEA local, attendance, compulsory attendance, Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I am presenting 6 policies that are being recommended for consideration and approval. They are BBD Local, Board Members, Training and Orientation, CAA Local, Fiscal Management, Goals and Objectives, CJA Local, Contracted Services, Criminal History, DHE Local, Employee Standards of Conduct, Searches and Alcohol Drug Testing, DI Local, Employee Welfare, FEA Local, Attendance, Compulsory Attendance. Update 111 from TASB is updating several local policies to better align with the changes in law and administrative rules or for organizational and restructuring purposes. As a best practice to promote transparency, the recommended text in BBD Local provides that the board president will annually announce the status of a board member's continuing education credit at the last regular board meeting before the district's regular uniform election date, even if an election is not scheduled or held. For our district, elections are held in May. Therefore, the announcements of the status of board members' continuing education credits will be held in April. CAA Local addresses fraud and financial impropriety. Local policy language is recommended to clarify that fraud reports may be made to any person with authority to investigate the alleged activity, including any of the other individuals currently listed in the policy. This aligns with the policy text with state law, which prohibits a district from requiring an employee to report only to certain persons a crime that's witnessed at school. Policy CJA Local includes provisions as permitted by state law that authorizes the employee in charge of a facility to determine whether an employee of a contracting or subcontracting entity who does not have the required criminal history review or has a disqualifying conviction will be permitted to enter a district facility in an emergency accompanied by district staff. In DHE Local, recommended text clarifies that the district may remove from duty and require testing of an employee if there is reasonable suspicion that the employee is under the influence of alcohol or drugs used in violation of district policy. The text also addresses consequences for an employee's refusal to comply with testing and for violation of the district's drug and alcohol policy. With the changes at DH Legal, which include additional provisions from the Federal Drug-Free Workplace Act and those made to DH Local in Update 109, TASB recommends the deletion of DI Local, as the content is adequately covered through our DH Local policies, legal and local policies. Finally, the recommended revision to FEA Local policy on compulsory attendance requires the district to excuse a student who is 17 years of age or older for up to 4 days during the student's enrollment in high school in order for the student to pursue enlistment in the armed services. At this time, I'll entertain any questions from the board.
Questions from board members? I think these are all words that come from the update to 111, and so
Yes, sir,
it's
that is
just
correct.
change in wording. Okay, then will you read the recommendation if there's no questions?
Yes, it is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of TASB Policy Update 111, affecting policies BBD Local, CAA Local, CJA Local, DHE Local, and FEA Local, and the deletion of policy of DI Local as recommended by the Board Policy Review Committee.
Thank you very much. You have heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
We have another policy consideration to approve the first reading of a localized policy update affecting DC Local Employee Practices. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, sir. Once again, this consideration of this first reading is a localized policy change for employment practices. Based on the need to fill vacancies for teaching positions and to facilitate the recruitment of eligible candidates, administration has recommended amending DC Local to reflect the practice of the board to retain final authority for employment of contractual personnel. However, delegating to the superintendent the authority to employ classroom teachers to fill existing vacancies. The policy will also add that the superintendent shall inform the board of any persons hired under his authority. And I'll entertain any questions.
Questions? I think we have heard the reason for doing this is you make recruitment trips and you have a candidate there that is willing and able to come to work for us, so that will help us in securing personnel, especially for those vacancies that are hard to get, especially, but all the vacancies that exist.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? I guess we have none. So administration recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of DC Local and the revisions to the language in this policy as recommended by the Board Policy Review Committee.
Thank you very much. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Overfelt. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item C, consideration to approve the district rental contract with the State of Texas House Natural Resources Committee for the use of the Student Performance Center and Administration Building Auditorium. You will find that on page 83 of your policy, of your Word book. 93.
Mr. Mesa, if I may address this issue.
Yes, Dr. Rios.
When this building, the SPC, was first opened, the consensus at that time was that the building would not be rented, that it would just be used for events benefiting our students and for very selected community events. At that point, we only used the center, the SPC Center, for student performances, graduations. We allowed the private schools to have some functions here as a recruitment tool, and a few scholarship events. I did all of this after the communication that we had when the building was first established. Since then, there was some concern expressed about how we were selecting who we would issue the building. Again, I do not recommend that we rent this building at all. I think that we should not rent this building, that it should not be up for rent. But I do think that there are certain events in the community that the board may want to consider renting the building. My question or the discussion that we want to have is we're bringing this issue to y'all for approval. Not that it's required, necessarily required in policy. Policy does grant the superintendent the authority to make some of these decisions, but because of the previous discussions we've had, I chose to bring this to y'all for approval, and then to have a discussion. How do you want me to proceed in the future? Do you want me to bring it to y'all every time that someone wishes to use it, or do you just want me to continue to make that decision? It's real easy to write a board agenda item, but I just would strongly encourage the board not to rent this facility at all. It's just too important for everything that we do to allow it to have wear and tear. But I also want some indication of how y'all want me to proceed. Do you want me to bring it to y'all for approval every time someone asks, or do you want me to continue to do as I have done before? There is no preference on administration's part. We just want the board to feel comfortable with what we do moving forward.
I have two questions in regard to that. I think legal counsel already has developed a form, if in case we do. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Part of the recommendations that legal counsel made was that we have a form so that we hold the district harmless for the use of it. And obviously, on the form, we would write that there would be no expense. And that piece has been met.
Okay. And the other part is they've used this facility before, this particular.
They've used it twice before. They've had 2 hearings here in the past.
That is correct. This would be the third year of their request.
So if I hear, Dr. Rios, your recommendation correctly is that we do not charge a fee, but yet allow them to use it.
I think that other taxing entities, like in this case, it is the House of Natural Resources Committee, so it's the State of Texas House, and we're all part of the same taxing base.
Yes.
My recommendation is that we not rent it to anyone, but only lend it out
Okay.
to areas of mutual benefit.
Just so I can understand it correctly. Everybody understand? Okay. Questions? Mr. Contreras?
Oh, no, go ahead, Ms. Webb.
Ms. Webb?
I just have a question. So how are you going to select who gets to use it and who doesn't get to use it?
Okay. If there's a benefit to students or student performances,
Well, that's a no question right there for student performances. That's already
Right.
used for that.
and well, the ones we've used it, the ones that we've allowed to use it are the private schools, primarily St. James and Sacred Heart. And I know they asked already, but I told them that we needed to wait. So it's St. James and Sacred Heart for their winter functions. And there was some requests for scholarship fundraisers, small presentations. And this event here, the Girl Scouts of America have also asked to use the building on a couple occasions. And that's pretty much it, ma'am. And really, it's, I don't see anybody else using it, but that's how we made the determination.
I had raised the question in regard to just having equity for anyone. Let's say that if they're doing a scholarship event in the name of a former employee, that they have equal access. But I understand also the other part where if it gets used quite a bit, I mean, we do want to make sure that we take care of our own facilities, especially this real nice facility that we're so fortunate to have. So whatever the wishes of the board.
Can I say something?
Yes. Ms. Amy Sanders.
Let me just clarify, because the scholarship that Mr. Mesta is speaking about is for my father. But I need to clarify some things, because I do not take part in that. I do take part because my mother makes me sing, but otherwise she handles all business with the district. I step out as a school board member. So I just wanted to be clear on that on my part. It's been sitting with me for some time, and we do use this facility, but the scholarships go out to our kids in our district. So I just want to be clear on that I do sit out as a board member, and my mother handles that. I do participate, yes, because I do help her, but otherwise she handles business with the superintendent and administration. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, thank you very much. And again, as I mentioned, there are other groups that raise money for scholarships, and I just want to make sure that it's equal opportunity for everyone. Mr. Contreras?
I agree. We should not rent this facility. And I also believe that I think we need to develop some stricter guidelines, procedure, and look at that policy again. And I think that every time there is a request, for it to be brought to the board, for us to approve it based on the guidelines and procedure that we set in place. That's just my opinion. But I don't think we should rent it. I think if it benefits the children, our students, our youth, our community, then it should be free.
I agree with that. And Ms. Webb?
I agree that we shouldn't charge a fee, but I don't think it needs to come to the board every time that there's going to be an event, especially like you mentioned, St. James, Sacred Heart, scholarship events. If the superintendent has a list of the different entities that have already used it in the past, I don't think it needs to come to the board every single time for approval. Maybe mentioned or on an update or something. I don't know how the board feels, but I think that you already have a list of the people that have used it.
Yeah, Dr. Rios?
How about if the superintendent, if I make a list of the people who have used it, and we put that in the policy that for these users, the board considers these community benefit, and then all others, if we'll obviously say no to, and then if they have an issue, then we'll bring those before the board. That way, I don't have to bring it every time, every winter holiday that Sacred Heart St. James wants to use it. I don't have to bring it every time the House, the State of Texas House Natural Resource or any House committee wants to use it. We don't have to bring that forward. But anybody else that would be outside of those bounds, including scholarships, we would then say, well, that's not what we use it, but I can certainly ask the board. So the practices that we've had in place, I'll enumerate those. Anything above that, then we'll consider for board action.
What about guidelines? What type of guidelines do you use to say yay or nay to a group? I mean, if they used it before, fine, but from this moment moving forward, if you're going to retain that control of who you're going to say, you know, yes, you can use it or not, at the very minimum, I would want to see the guidelines you use to say, yes, you can use it and not to use it.
Absolutely. We'll take the board policy and we'll write admin reg based on that policy, and it'll be the admin reg that stipulates in more detail those guidelines. And we'll even bring the admin reg to the policy policy review committee, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's very well scripted.
Mr. Orfeld?
I pretty much agree with what everyone's saying, and I was just going to say that if administration has a recommendation for this one particular, that I'd move to go ahead and accept it as a no-fee charge because they have used it twice, and then he can give us the guidelines there,
Okay.
just so it's.
Okay, unless anyone has an objection, I think that what Dr. Rios just mentioned, but we're going to deal with this particular one because of the essence of time.
No.
So,
Can I say one more thing?
Mr.
Now,
Contreras?
something else I just thought about. Do they use our staff for these events? Because if that's the case, that's taxpayer money we're giving. Not only are we letting the use of the facility for free, the only thing is where I might have an issue is our staff being used for those events. Who compensates the staff for those events?
So the staff that works?
The event, yes.
Yes, the
here.
event is by and large a professional staff that doesn't generate overtime compensation. And again, that's why it's a mutual benefit where there's a stake for both entities.
Because that's the only thing. I mean, I can see that for, you know, they're part of their work for the school district. However, when they're used their work for a private entity, I think there should be a difference there.
I think the discussion will continue with you giving us some regulations in regard to what you propose. But at this time, I'd like to hear the recommendation from administration.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve for the superintendent to sign the contract and approve that the State of Texas House Natural Resources Committee use the Student Performance Center and Administration Building Auditorium, and no fee is assessed to this entity.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Mrs. Webb, seconded by Ms. Sanders. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We're down to item 11 on the agenda. Consideration to approve the resolution regarding extracurricular status of 4-H organization. Dr. Garza.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa and Dr. Rios, members of the board.
We do this every year. This is an agreement that we have with 4-H. The gist of this agreement, of this recommendation, is to make sure that we have adjunct teachers at this event so that the students that are participating in this event are not counted absent for ADA purposes.
Thank you,
And
sir.
this, I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead.
This year, we have Ms. Raquel Rodriguez and Emily Grant as the adjunct teachers.
Board members, you'll find that on page 94 of your book.
It's an annual.
Yes. This is every year that is brought to us. Okay, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, Reed, could you give us a recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees recognize the above-listed county extension agents as adjunct staff members and to count students participating in 4-H extension education activities in attendance for foundation school program purposes. It is also requested that Dr. Rios sign the adjunct faculty agreement and the resolution regarding extracurricular activities status of 4-H organization as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion for approval? Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're down to item 11B, consideration to approve an agreement between Southwest Texas Junior College and San Felipe del Rio CISD for career and technical education, dual credit courses. Ida Gomez and Roger Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Board President, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The Memorandum of Understanding is the operational plan for delivery of dual technical courses offered to Del Rio High School students during the 2018-2019 school year. Under separate cover is the updated list from the CTE courses offered by the two separate divisions of Southwest Texas Junior College, the dual credit and certificate program. As you can see on the separate cover, there are 10 different programs that are offered through CTE. The new dual credit changes include construction, carpentry program, and the automotive technology program. Both of these programs offer students the opportunity to graduate with a one-year certificate besides obtaining industry-related certifications. Any questions?
Okay, you have heard the presentation or questions from Mr. Overfeld?
Just real quick, did the pharmacy tech program go away?
The pharmacy tech program went away for a while. We have replaced it with the medical assistant program.
Okay. Name change. Okay, awesome.
Based on student request.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question, Mr. Gonzalez. Sure. Are these new certifications, or we've had those in the past? I know automotive, we've had this in the past, correct?
We've had it in the past. We just did not have a certified instructor, and so we were pending the certified instructor, and now he actually qualifies. For every single program that we have, they are authorized through the Southwest Texas Junior College to teach that particular program.
Okay. Any other question from board members? Okay, the recommendation from administration?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent of schools to sign the MOU agreement with Southwest Texas Junior College as presented.
Thank you, sir. You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Ms. Sanders? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 11C, consideration to approve an agreement between Southwest Texas Junior College and San Felipe del Rio CISD for dual credit courses. Ida Gomez and Dr. Perez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. I bring to you consideration to approve Memorandum of Understanding between Southwest Texas Junior College and the San Felipe del Rio CISD to include academic courses such as English 4, economics, government, U.S. history, sociology, and psychology. Southwest Texas will continue to offer dual credit classes at a reduced cost, which is based strictly on tuition and waiving all other fees. Textbooks will be made available at reduced rates to the district through the Texas Bookstore.
Questions from board members? Dr. Pettis, is this the same list that we had from last year?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's just the same. Okay. Hearing no questions, then I will ask for the recommendation from administration.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent of schools to sign the MOU agreement with Southwest Texas Junior College as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're down to item 12A. Consideration approved update to purchase order over $25,000 with Insight Financial Services in the amount of $102,610.55. Funding source, General Fund Technology for Laughlin STEM Magnet Campus Technology Lease Agreement. Leslie Henge and Antonio Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Thank you. President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. This is pertaining to the agenda item that was approved on January 22nd on the Board of Trustees. At that time, we did not know what the exact interest rate was going to be on this lease. The total lease interest at the time, let me back up a second here. I did include this itemized list with your presentation tonight. It shows the fixed breakdown on the interest rates because the hardware and software costs on these items that were included in this technology lease do vary in percentages. So in January 22nd, we did have the technology lease approved for Laughlin at $93,651.76. After taking into consideration these calculations, the interest total was $8,958.79, which brings the overall lease amount to $102,610.55. The original PO was the approved amount at $93,651.
Questions? I think we have heard this before without the interest rate. Recommendation from administration, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the amount to purchase order over $25,000 with Insight Financial Services in the amount of $102,610.55 for 5 annual payments of $20,000, $20,522.11.
I've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras?
So moved.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no items under 13, 14. We go to item 15, public hearing. Item A, 2018-2019 public hearing for budget and tax rate. Dana Valdez.
Good evening once again. This is the executive budget public hearing for our 2018-2019 San Felipe Del Rio CISD budget. We will review budget compliance, budget projections, the executive budget, and discuss again the tax ratification election. Excuse me. Primarily for budget compliance, it is required that we have a publication of notice of the budget and proposed tax rate. And this was published in the Del Rio News Herald on August 12th and the 19th. So again, it was in the newspaper, and it did have today's meeting as a public hearing with the tax rates that will be presented in the agenda items that will follow after closed session. Our budget projections include property tax and attendance. Again, our property tax is our collections of ad valorem of taxes that we levy. Our school district tax rates have two parts: maintenance and operation and interest and sinking. The state does allocate more funding for maintenance and operations than it does for interest and sinking. We currently have a total tax rate of 1.1598, which is broken out at $1.04 for maintenance and operation and $0.1198 for interest and sinking. Our certified values for 2018-2019 are $1,799,074,210. This is a 12.04% increase to the 2017 certified values. At a tax rate of 1.1598, the projected 2018-2019 tax collections are $21,943,477. Or if we look at it based on our annual attendance per student, it's 2,259. Attendance is one of the main funding sources used in foundation school funding. Again, our attendance that we're using, or average daily attendance that we're using for 2019 is 9,713. Again, this is just slightly the same as 2018, and we're forecasting slightly the same number for 2020. Using this average daily attendance for computing state aid, we will generate approximately $6,630 per student based on their average daily attendance for the year. The executive budget. The district or school districts are required to approve an executive budget, which includes the general fund, the food service fund, and the debt service fund. On this slide, you can see all of the funding sources or fund managements for a school district. However, for budget purposes, we're only required to approve the 3 budgets. For general fund, this is our main operating fund for the school district. Again, it is a governmental fund used to account for transactions from ongoing operations and activities and a variety of revenue sources. The most significant sources of revenue for the general fund are state funding and property tax receipts. This budget includes the 2% general pay increase from the TASB salary study. This is our 4th year or 4th salary study from TASB, and this will be the first year where we have updated or where we are updating the stipend schedules as well. The health insurance fund included in the budget as well. In 2017-2018, we had an annual contribution per employee of $5,279. This contribution here does not include the committed funds. This contribution here is just part of what was the recurring budget. For the 2018-2019 budget, we included an increase in the employee contribution of $1 million, which is approximately $667 per employee. So the 2018-2019 annual contribution per employee is $5,946, which is included in this budget. We are presenting a balanced budget for general fund. This balanced budget is based off of the maintenance and operation tax rate being at 1.1598. Our revenue totals $93,036,960. 24.7% of our revenue comes from local revenue sources, which is primarily from tax collections. 73.6% is from state funding. 1.7% is from federal sources. Again, total revenue is $93,036,960. Based on the average daily attendance that we're using for this budget, that's $9,579 revenue dollars per student. Again, the fate of the tax ratification election will be decided by voters on November 6, 2018. If voters do not ratify or approve the tax ratification election, of course, we could not adopt a tax rate that exceeds the rollback tax rate, which would mean that our tax rate would roll back or go back to a maintenance and operation tax rate of $1.04 and interest and sinking of 0.1198, which would be a projected deficit of about $3.3 million. Looking at our expenditures, again, at a balanced budget of $93,036,960, 72.8% of our expenditures are instruction and student support related expenditures at $67,762,008. 3.7 are at general administration, $3,401,208. There is a line item there that I have highlighted or in a different font in blue. This is a requirement for the 2018-2019 budget that we have, that we show the budget that we have allocated for public notices. This is part of the 85th legislative session. It requires that starting this budget year that we do show what we are budgeting for for what it cost our district for required public notices. So for instance, the notice that you saw at the beginning of this presentation is a required public notice, and this is the total budget where we have all of the procurement required notices, any public hearings that we have, anything that's required for us to have any type of public notice. Our proposed budget is $7,410, and we primarily have that included under general administration. The 23.5% of our budget is included under, or is operations, which is $21,873,745. Plant maintenance and operations is where, as I'll mention on the next slide, is where we have utilities, which is a major part of our operations budget. When we look at the budget by object code group, $93,036,960. When we look at it at an object level, because we're required to present it at a functional level. So that functional level is how you will see our financial reports. It's how you will see the reports that we will present, that we will post, on our website, that are required for us to maintain for 3 years on the website. And it will require for the board president and the board secretary to sign off on that official budget. Will be at a functional level. However, I always like to communicate and share with the board what the object level is as well. So this $93 million budget, you can see 76.8% of it is allocated to payroll. 6.9% of it is allocated to professional and contracted services. And as I mentioned earlier, professional and contracted services includes utilities. That's how the state of Texas requires that we classify utilities as a contracted service, and it's allocated to our operations budget. 4.9% is under supplies, 3.3% for miscellaneous, and under miscellaneous, you can see where student travel under function 36 is where we have the majority of the budget. We also have 4.4 for debt, which, as you can see here, our INS debt payment included in the general fund, again, because of our proposed change of our tax rate, will be 2,473,749, and the remainder of that budget, of our tax payment for next year, you'll see on the INS side. Earlier, when we were working on the final parts of the budget workshop, when we were working on the final parts of the budget, we allocated $1 million for construction. You can see that in this last column. Here's the $1 million for construction. If you look, there's $500,000 here for security, so that's function 52. And then the $1.9 million for technology and operations, I simply split between those two functions. However, this is how we're approving the budget throughout the year as Mr. Henge presents his monthly board meeting updates. If there's any changes, that will be presented. But I just simply took the amount that we had last year for operations, about $700,000, and the rest I placed into data processing or technology. But again, this is our $93 million budget for general fund. For debt service, this revenue for, the budget for debt service is based on a tax rate of 0 cents. That tax rate of 0 cents means that 0 cents will be applied to the local taxpayer's tax bill. So if you can see here under tax collections, you do not see the amount that we see in prior years, which was over $1 million. What we have included in here under tax collections, this is simply what we're estimating as prior year tax collections. So we do have delinquent taxes. So as those get paid on those tax years that had an INS tax rate, that will be revenue that's collected and coded to this fund. That's why you'll see a little bit of tax collections under local, but it deals with delinquent. The state, as it is always a year in arrears, will pay $1.5 million in the 2018-2019 fiscal year, and that 1.5 and or in total, the revenue for INS is $1,629,251. When we take that plus what we've allocated in general fund, it comes out to the $4.3 million that we have in total debt payments that are coming up for the 18-19 school year. Again, this is a balanced budget that we're proposing or presenting, and debt service has always been a balanced budget. For food service, this is Fund 240. Revenues are projected, and this budget was approved at the April board meeting because of our third-party administrators, or our, which is SFE. But since it's part of this budget process, we bring it back to the board. It's $5,983,807 for revenues, and SFE calculated expenditures at $5,954,094. So they're projecting a profit of $29,713. And if you recall, during the budget workshops during the summer, because they're projecting a profit, the general fund did not have to allocate the $70,000 that it did in this prior year for its portion of the CEP payments. So again, as this fund starts to be profitable, it does help offset that CEP allocation that the district was required to have in general fund. But with the favorability as it grows, we have a lot of projects that we'd like to do in food service. In total, we have, again, the three budgets that we're presenting, which is general fund, debt service, and food service. In total, the three executive budgets total $100,620,305. In expenditures. In revenues, it totals $100,650,018. For our executive summary, the only fund that is showing a profit or an excess is food service at $29,713. At this time, I'll begin on the tax ratification election unless there's questions on the budget, but if not, I can keep going, sir.
Any questions from board members? Okay, we'll go on to the.
Okay. The order of election, the deadline to order an election for the Tuesday, November 6th election day, general election is today. So if any governing body wishes to adopt a tax rate that exceeds its prior or district's rollback tax rate, we must approve or move forward with ordering an election. Again, we are restructuring our tax rate so that our end goal is that our maintenance and operation tax rate be at $1.1598 and interest and sinking be at 0. Our total tax rate will have no change. However, in order to get to that, there's several steps and confusing language that goes along with this. We have to use truth in taxation. This is required by the Texas tax code. This is required by the tax code. We do have to use truth in taxation to guide us in the language that is required for every school district in the state of Texas to use to communicate what their tax rate is, and the language on the ballot as well. Every school district every school district, when you adopt a tax rate, that adopted tax rate, then again, the truth in taxation system generates language that compares it to these other tax rates. So when we're reading the language, you will hear different tax rates referenced. For example, you will hear effective tax rate. You will hear rollback tax rate. We've always had all of these tax rates calculated for us every year. However, we've never had to deal with them because our tax rate, our tax rate has never changed for the maintenance and operation side. So again, I wanted you to see that this is a table that the Val Verde County does have to have posted for our school district. We do send it to them every year. I do have the last 5 years because that's what's required for them to post, but we do have 5 different tax rates that are compared to our adopted tax rate, and that's where all of the different language comes from. And again, this is just based on tax code. And the reason I brought that table up is because on this first legal language, this is one of the agenda items. This legal language compares our tax rate to the effective tax rate. The ballot language compares it to the rollback tax rate. So again, that's why this is going to look different than the ballot, but again, it's because it's comparing it to different tax rates. So the legal language for us to approve the tax rate today is a total tax rate of 1.2796 because it includes the 1.1598 tax rate, which is our end goal on maintenance and operation. However, in order to safeguard the district in having that INS tax rate, if the tax ratification election isn't successful, we must include it within this tax rate. And this is, again, just the steps that are required in order for us to get to that end goal of, on November 6th, if the tax ratification is successful, we will come back on November 12th and finalize our tax rate to just be at 1.1598. So again, we are required to have, in order for us to do a maintenance and operation of a tax rate of 1.1598, it is important for us to safeguard the district and also have the interest and sinking tax rate. But by having these 2 tax rates here, the language says that we are increasing the tax rate, because our tax rate is 1.2796, which is effectively, because this is now comparing to the effective tax rate, 29.9% increase. This is just language that has to be said. In the end, the voters will not see a change in the tax rate, but unfortunately, this is the laws that every single school district has to follow. Of course, it says that this tax rate will raise more taxes. Again, it's reading off of what we're inputting into the system. And that this tax rate will effectively be raised by 3.48% and will raise taxes for maintenance and operation on a $100,000 home by approximately $119.80. So if our district were to move forward with this total tax rate, then this language would be correct. However, our district is proposing just to have a final result of maintenance and operation of 1.1598. And it takes several steps to get there, but this language is required to get there. On the ballot, the legal language that's required on the ballot is the approval of the tax rate of 1.27, even though the final one is going to be 1.1598. And it compares that tax rate to your rollback. So again, that's what I was mentioning earlier. We have 5 tax rates that are compared to whatever tax rate we propose as a district, and that creates different legal language. So I will read the proposition. Approving the ad valorem tax rate of 1.2796 per $100 valuation in San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District for the current year, a tax rate that is 0.125828 higher per $100 valuation than the school district's rollback tax rate for the purpose of increasing revenue for maintenance and operations. That's the required language. The next statement is language that we researched and sent to Mr. Schulman to confirm. So at the end, it says, and it continues, at a final tax rate of 1.1598, which is no increase to the overall 2017 tax rate. That is the end goal, but in order to get there, it takes several different steps, unfortunately. Again, Election Day is November 6th. After Election Day, on November 12th, we do have a board meeting that day. At that board meeting, if the tax rate is ratified by the voters, then we will be presenting a new appraisal roll and submitting the maintenance and operation tax rate at 1.1598 and INS at 0. If it is not ratified by the voters, then we would not be allowed to change anything. Our maintenance and operation tax rate would be back to $1.04. However, if we did not include that 0.1198 as part of the language that we're approving today for our tax rate, then we couldn't have any INS tax rate on November 6th, which would mean we would lose all of that money. So again, this is a safeguard for the district in order to get to this tax rate here so that we can generate additional funding from the state. There's just all of those steps that we have to go through and make sure that we're safeguarding the district. Our taxpayers will not see a tax bill until after the election. That's our guarantee of them also not having that any notices of increase in taxes, because their tax rate will remain the same. And that's all I have for the executive budget public hearing.
Any public comments from anyone? Hearing no public comments, I will adjourn the public hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, it is now time to go into closed session. We're going into closed session in regard to sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084, and 551.087 of the Government Code, Texas Open Meetings Act. We are now in closed session. The time is 8:16. Okay, the time is 10:09. It is time to reconvene into open session. No action was taken in executive. We're down to item 17A. Consideration, oh, we don't have 17A. 18, Business and Finance. Consideration to approve appraisal roll and tax collection certification by tax assessor collector. Yanakani Valdez. It's a different title.
President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members, Ms. V. Munoz could not join us, but she did provide a signed copy of the anticipated collection rate and total anticipated estimated amount collectible. I placed that at your place of seating. So she did provide a signed copy of it. And again, the anticipated collection rate is at 98%. This is based on using the tax rates that we discussed earlier during the public hearing. And again, this is using the required steps in order to move forward with the tax ratification election. If the tax ratification election is successful, we would remove the INS tax rate and just leave the maintenance and operation tax rate and represent this at the November 12th meeting. Any questions?
Board members, any questions?
Okay.
Hearing none.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the district's anticipated collection rate and total estimated amount collectible as provided by Beatriz I. Munoz.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval?
So
Mr.
moved.
Contreras? Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Overfelt? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item that we have is 18B. Consideration to approve the 2018-2019 district official budget. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you again, President Mesa. I do have a copy for everybody at the functional level of the executive budget. Again, this was presented at the public hearing. The total revenue for the district official executive budget is $100,650,018, and the total expenditures is $100,620,305. The district official budget includes the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund. Are there any questions?
Questions from board members? I think all of you have that in front of you. Then I'll entertain, go ahead and read the recommendation if you could, please.
Yeah. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the 2018-2019 district official budget, which includes the general fund budget, the debt service budget, and the food service budget.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Ms. Gonzalez? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mesa,
Yes, question. Mr.
Just-
Overfelt?
comment on that. I know we approved and all that, but I do hope that we are able to, as we move down the line, look at some of those security things that we talked about in closed.
Yes. The discussion will continue in regard to security items. I think, Dr. Rios, I think all of us have expressed some input in regard to what we'd like to see in place. So that discussion will continue in the coming weeks until we make our final decision on that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll be prepared to have that discussion in the coming weeks and certainly present something in September. But in the meantime, I would like to express appreciation both for the administration that worked on the budget and for all the input that we had on the board. I think this is the most transparent budget approval that we've had, and it was good. It was open, and we all knew what we wanted, and it worked out really well. So I hope that this continues.
Thank you, sir. And I really would like to applaud the board members for their input. I think this is one of the most active, I guess, summer sessions that we've had, because we've had meeting after meeting, but everybody has given input, and I'm so glad that everybody has different opinions and different ideas, and we're all able to put it into one. So again, Yanakani, thanks to your staff for all the hard work and all the presentations that have been made, and also for the board members that have done the videos and different things to help out. Okay, next item that we have is item 18C, consideration to adopt the 2018-2019 ordinance setting the M&O tax rate at 1.1598 and the INS tax rate at 0.01198 for a total tax rate of 1.2796. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you. A public notice was published in the Del Rio News Herald, and it did include this proposed tax rate, and it did include the date of the public hearing that was presented today. These are the steps required for the property tax code to adopt a tax rate, and the statements that are included in the ordinance, which you have there, are required as well in adopting this tax rate. Again, this tax rate is in order to move forward with the tax ratification election. Included in the memo that you have in front of you are the steps that would follow after the tax ratification election to have our final tax rate of 1.1598. The ordinance does have the tax rate of 1.1598 for maintenance and operation and 0.1198 for interest and sinking to safeguard the district depending on the results of the tax ratification election. By having these two tax rates, it does show an increase to the tax rate on paper on this ordinance, but again, it's only to move forward with the tax ratification election. The ordinance does require signatures from the board president and the board secretary. Are there any questions?
Okay, I will entertain any questions from board members. There being none, the recommendation.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the 2018-2019 ordinance setting the maintenance and operation tax rate at 1.1598 and the interest and sinking tax rate at 0.1198 for a total tax rate of 1.2796.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Mrs. Gonzalez? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Item 18D, consideration to approve the order of election and notice of election for the tax ratification election to be held on Tuesday, November 6, 2018. Yanakani Valdez.
In compliance with the election code, in compliance with the election code, the Board of Trustees of San Felipe Del Rio CISD must approve a notice of election and an order of election establishing the procedures for filing and conducting a tax ratification election. In an election that is held on a uniform election date, a district shall use the regular county election precincts and shall designate as the polling places for the election the regular county polling places in the county election precincts that contain territory from the district. This is included in our legal board policy, BBBA legal. I included some deadlines that are provided by the Secretary of State calendar for the November 6th election. Today is the deadline to order an election. September 7 is the deadline to provide the notice. Since our next board meeting or regular board meeting is later in September, I combined the order and the notice in this agenda item. And the first day of early voting is Monday, October 22nd. The order and the notice you have before you is in English and in Spanish. It includes the proposition language that I read during the public hearing. and it includes the election day sites that I received today from Ms. Janie Ramon. So these are the same sites that the county is using on election day. And on early voting, they are using the Civic Center. So again, this includes both the order and the notice of election, and it does require the signature of the board members. So after the meeting, I'll walk up with the order and the notice for your signature. Are there any questions?
Questions, board members? Hearing none,
Okay.
can you read the recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the order and notice of election for the tax ratification election to be held on Tuesday, November 6, 2018.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Ms. Sanders? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We come to item 19, Superintendent's Report. The final 2017-2018 board meeting is on August 27th.
Yes, sir.
Any other information?
Just one other comment. Now that you've approved the order of election, I've asked the staff to put together a list of public engagements that include presentations to civic organizations, presentations at each faculty meeting, presentations at other businesses, and we'll be sharing that with the board and asking that at least one board member accompany us to those presentations and participate because this is something new for the community. I think that having board members present there will go a long way in the transparency and the awareness. I think it'll be a good thing, so I hope that y'all will be able to join in as many of them as possible. And item 19, a week from today, we will meet the final board meeting of the 2017-2018 school year to present amendments. It's at that time, Mr. Mesa, that we'll consider the carryover money for insurance, as well as recommitting other funds that are left over from previously committed funds. So we'll take a poll between now and Friday just to make sure that everybody will be here. I know that there's some medical issues and some other business issues, but we'll take a poll just to make sure we'll have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And I remind the board members that we have an important date of September the 8th to do the evaluation. And so I urge you to make sure you have that on your calendar. And we look forward to a great year. Thank you again for preparing all the work that goes on behind the scenes in preparation for a brand new year. And so there being no other items on the agenda, I will entertain a motion for this adjournment. Is motion by Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you.